We are on our November webinar, and as we're starting, we will, inshallah, start by a few verses from the Holy Qur'an. So, since we're looking at Taqwa, and inshallah, we'll be looking at what that means for us. I've chosen chapter 26, Surah Al-Shura, to ponder on. And obviously this chapter goes on the story of Prophet Lut alayhi salam, and there's some verses here for us to perhaps look at before we start. So the first how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it is Kazzaba Qawm Lut. So in different nations deny the messengers, so and that they don't accept the message that the prophet, in this case Prophet Lut alayhi salam, is giving. Now it's interesting to see, okay, what is the message that the prophet is giving? And the next verse is Qala lahum akhuahum. Now it's interesting that the word akhuahum has said, we know that it's a prophet, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him as a brother. And obviously for people who know about the importance of brotherhood in terms of same-sex lust, in terms of understanding the understanding of brotherhood and sisterhood, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word akhuahum in this context. And then what does he ask him? He says, Allah tattaqun, will you not have taqwa? Will you not be mindful? Are you not aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So I think it is very beautiful, and it goes back to kind of our values when we talk about God centricity over self-centricity, and that actually what the prophet isn't talking a sexual identity. He isn't saying, aren't you going to become straight? What he's saying is, will you have taqwa in what's actually happening? And in the verse again, what does he then say? Inni lakum rasulan ameen. I am somebody trustworthy that you can trust. So again, this is very interesting. In the verse, it's talking about brotherhood, it's talking about taqwa, it's talking about someone who you can trust, and all of these are very important qualities. We go on next. Again, the concept of taqwa again comes in. Fattaqullaha wa atiyun. So having taqwa of Allah would mean that you obey the messenger of Allah, in this case, Prophet Lut alayhi salam. And again, the next verse is what we see time and time again with a lot of messengers who say, I ask no reward of this, for my reward is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In ajri ila ala rabbil alameen. So it isn't that the prophet is going to get anything out of the message, or isn't that they're going to get a message or some financial gain or something from the people obeying what they're saying, but he's reminding them that I don't have any vested interest. I'm only recommending you to be conscious, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then from the other verses, we see what is it that he's actually saying. And again, a lot of people have misinterpreted this story sometimes to talk about rape. And then we see that this isn't the case. So in the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, atatuna is the act. It's going to, yeah. So the verb, it's the verb of the act, and it's going to. It isn't talking about the emotion, it's talking about the feeling, it's talking about the act of going to men. Atatuna zikran min al-alameen, of all of people, all the people of all worlds, you're approaching men And what does that mean that you're approaching men? It says, وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبَّكُمْ. So this is really important, because what Allah is saying is that even for somebody who may be experiencing same-sex attractions, may be going through difficulties, there will still be a spouse which understands that, or even if you're going through that desires, it doesn't mean that you're not completely bereft or you're not able to find anyone. So وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ, and you're leaving, you're basically saying no to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined, has created for you, min azwajikum, from your spouses. And then again, the verb here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the adjective here that he uses to describe this nation is qawman adun, bal antum qawman adun. And again, this is someone who's transgressing. So it's so much saying that you have a way for emotional or sexual connection, but you're choosing to transgress that, or there's an emotional boundary which you have with brotherhood, but you're transgressing that into a sexual boundary. And then we have the response from the people who says, قَالُوا لَن لَمْ تَنْتَهُوا يَا لُوط, unless you refrain from this, we will surely evict you. And then Prophet Lut alayhi salam, there's a response that I abhor inni lakum, inni la'alam lakum min al-qa'ilin. Qa'ilin as in I abhor this, I detest what this act is. And of course, the verse goes on in terms of the dua, Rabbi najayni wa ahli mimman ya'malun. And it's a beautiful chapter to consider and to see and to reflect on, inshallah. I wanted to kind of look at the concept of taqwa as what we're discussing today. So just an introduction, you might be tuning in today and you don't know what strong support is or what we're doing. So strong support is a peer support organization for Muslims who struggle with their sexual or gender identity. So as we were reading in the verses of the Quran, we're not saying that we are prescribing a certain sexual identity. So you see, we won't use the word heterosexuality, we won't use the word homosexuality, won't use these terms in terms of a specified identity, the idea of a sexual identity, which, arguably only existed since the 1900s, where we have these terms heterosexuality or homosexuality. But instead, as Prophet Lut alayhi salam is saying, we're looking at taqwa, we're looking at ala tattaqun. Are we going to have God centricity in what we're doing? And the basis of that is for strong support to provide non-judgmental, safe spaces where people can share what is going on as they are on their journey towards taqwa, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do that through our support circles. So we have support circles, or 2 circles for men. There's 1 circle for women, and there's another circle for Arabic speaking. We also have 1-to-1 consultations as well. If you choose to do that, we have free consultations as well, 30-minute free consultations you can, inshallah, make use of. And we have our webinars, which are free completely, as the one we are doing today. So without further ado, in terms of, we have some volunteer places as well. So we are looking for a female lead for our support circle. This can be somebody who has experience in mental health or would like to work with us more, some type of background. We are looking for volunteers at the moment, as well as video editing. So if you are interested in helping out, would love to have you on board. Our next webinar would be with the leader of the Scottish Family Party, Richard Lucas. So have a watch out on that. We'd be discussing different themes of sexuality and education in Scotland. So do watch out for that, inshallah, next month. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Parvez. He's based in, he joins us today. I think it's about 9 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, or in India at the moment. So we're grateful he's joining us at quite late in the evening there. He's a dental surgeon by profession, and he's written a lot of books. So there's Chiseled Perceptions, which he wrote in 2017. Recently, he's written How and Why of Dawah. And he has also done a comprehensive index of the Holy Qur'an, which is called Furqan, A Practical Index of the Holy Qur'an. And there's a number of books which he has translated from Urdu to English. He's also the National Vice President of the Medical Service Society and the representative at Islamic Information Center, Pan-India Dawah organization. He's also presented a paper in the 35th International Islamic Unity Conference in Tehran, among other colloquia and publications. One of the things which you may also see if you go to the social media channels for Taqwa over Queer, TAQueer, you will find recently he's published a book which is called A Crescent in the Rainbow, and it discusses the approach, it discusses some of the definitions, some of the Islamic approaches to this. So it's definitely something and recommend you can have a look at. But more recently, I think, and perhaps this is the conversation where we can bring Dr. Parvez in. There's a certain tweet which went viral, and it has a beautiful message. It was Jummah, as you can see, yesterday there was Jummah. So Dr. Parvez was wearing the kurta, which, or you would call maybe jilbab, kind of, the those of who go to Jummah when they wear that. And he came across a pundit, and as you can imagine, in a very busy train in Mumbai, you wonder who to give the seat to. So this pundit, he assumed he was a Maulvi, or like an Islamic scholar. So he says he wanted me to sit and I wanted him to sit, and you can see the akhlaq in that, the moral characteristics in that. And then they agreed that they would vacate it for a lady who would sit. So he continues on. He says, when another person offered to vacate his seat for the pundit, he backed off, saying, "Aap buzurg ho, ye to main Maulvi sahab ke aadar mein unke saath baith kiya." So what's that saying is, you're elderly. This is, I've done this for the respect of Dr. Parvez and in him being an Islamic, kind of a Islamic scholar, Islamic entity. And then Dr. Parvez says, I then requested a selfie, saying, Panditji, there's a lot of hatred which is spread in this world, and it's good if we spread a bit of love. So that's what that's saying. So yeah, I guess we can start with that experience, Dr. Parvez, if you like.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakallah khair for that very flattering introduction. Alhamdulillah.
How was that experience with the pundit?
It was good. He was a very jolly person, and I thought that we should seize that opportunity because there's a lot of hatred going on in our country right now,
Mhm.
the social fabric, and mostly on social media actually, probably not in the real world. So I thought that social media is a good place to undo all that hatred, especially on Twitter. And it worked out well, alhamdulillah.
Absolutely. And I think, there's definitely context to that in terms of what we've seen in the UK, in terms of, kind of frictions between the different Hindu and Muslim communities. So it seems really nice that that's been kind of, there is elements of, I'm sure there's loads of people wanting to coexist as Muslims have coexisted for years in India.
You had some escalations last month, I presume. May God make it easy for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, no, this is really nice to kind of see shared akhlaq between the two communities and to see that. So yes, brilliant. So thank you for joining us, and I know it's quite late in the evening.
It's
And
on my part.
no, it's we're very grateful that you're joining us.
To interact with people across the seas.
Yes. So I actually found out about Taqwa over queer. I was searching something over Twitter and I was finding, oh, this is really interesting, and I come across it, and it kind of struck me to say, okay, at first I looked and I said, oh, we've got Dr. Parvez. I wonder what prompted him to kind of create, because usually when people talk about topics like this, these aren't easy topics perhaps to talk about in our communities. And I wonder what was the motivation to perhaps bring something like this out of other things which you could be working on. And you do, mashallah, you're doing so much. You do publications, you're doing other things as well. What was the driver behind creating Taqwa over queer?
The first thing is that there was no organization in India, and I still believe there is no organization in the Indian subcontinent that is taking up this task. But what actually triggered it, if you can allow me to present a brief history of whatever happened. See, India is a very traditional, family value oriented country. So we have it ingrained, those family values and all those things. And we also had a law dating back to 1861 during the British era, which criminalized all unnatural sexual activity. It was called Section 377 of the IPC, the Indian Penal Code. And everything was going on as per the law all those years until 2009, when the Delhi High Court it squashed that law and tried to make unnatural sexual activity, or you can say LGBT or whatever, legal. And then there were protests. Protests erupted all over India, especially Muslim organizations and even Hindu organizations for that matter. They protested against it. And the Supreme Court in December 2013, it reverted back, and he said that the law still stays, and homosexuality or any unnatural sexual activity for that matter remains criminal. And then again, there was a review petition in the Supreme Court in 2018, and finally, as of today, after 2018, homosexuality and all of the forms of unnatural sexual activity, they are decriminalized as of today. Now, during this period of, let's say, 10 years, from 2009 to 2018, since there were a lot of protests, and I have been, I have associated myself with a lot of social organizations. So I was also a part of those protests. But what struck me was the discourse, the narrative that was built all around the protests. The pro-LGBT lobby as well as the anti-LGBT lobby, they had some narratives that I couldn't digest. The pro-LGBT lobby use words like "my body, my choice," and "it's our preference," and those things. Now, what irked the anti-LGBT lobby, let's say the religious bodies, was that when you say "my choice" and "my preference," so preference is always something which is deliberate. You deliberately prefer something over another, and in this case, sexuality. And if that deliberate choice or preference goes against the norm, goes against what is acceptable in society or in religion, in theology, then that becomes a rebellion. So someone's preference was constructed to be anti-Islam. Remember. Now, what my contention was that sexuality can never be a preference. That is what struck me. That I like any other healthy adult, I also have sexual desires. And what I gathered from my own experience of sexuality was that I cannot prefer to get aroused by someone or not get aroused by someone. Sexuality doesn't work that way. It's not a voluntary thing. It doesn't work under our volition. Any form of arousal, let's say erection, let's say nocturnal emissions like wet dreams, those don't happen at will. I cannot at my will command my body to have an erection or something. So what I realized is that preference is not a very good term. And when I researched into this topic more, I came to know that even the more sane, the more rational pro-LGBT lobby guys, they don't prefer this term. They use the word orientation. And I happened to visit an organization. It's called Humsafar Trust, which works in Bombay, which works for the pro-LGBT community, in a pro manner, in a most liberal manner. And they also told me that we don't use the word preference, we use the word orientation. Now, if something is not a preference, then that entire hierarchy of argument, that entire thing, that if it is not a preference, then it is not rebellion, and if it is not rebellion, it is not anti-Islam. So that is where I came to a conclusion that just having those sexual desires is not anti-Islam per se, until and unless you act upon those desires. And then I went back to the Quran, like you have recited from Surah Ash-Shura. Then there are ayat from Surah Araf, Surah Hud, Surah Hijr, Surah Naml, Ankabut, Qamar. So there are 7 passages in the Quran, and none of those passages and none of the hadiths that I came across have anywhere said that having sinful desires or same-sex attraction is a sin per se. Nowhere does Lut alayhi salam ever say that you are transgressors just because you have those feelings. So this is something that actually struck me, that any act would be a sin, but those temptations per se should not be a sin. And I could see many people who they were not opening up, especially the Muslims who are struggling with these desires. And there was only one space available to them, that was the pro-LGBT, those organizations. And when they go to them, and when I also had that interaction with that Humsafar Trust counselor, what she told me was that religion is a baggage that you need to discard. These religious priests have, fed something in people's minds that that God has created you in sin and all those things. So shed that baggage, come to us. So that was quite an eye opener, that there is no avenue for the Muslims who, like I said, in a traditional country like India, there are a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of reservation. People don't open up. The only place they can open up is a place which carries them more into sin. So I and some like-minded friends, we came up with this thing. I had a few paper presentations in 2020, before that lockdown set up, Feb 2020. And then I gathered some support on social media and all those things. And then we came up with this word, this TAQueer, this organization, which is basically an amalgamation of 2 words, Taqwa and Cure. So it's Taqwa over Cure. So you have Taqwa instead of choosing. If you do want to choose, then choose Taqwa, don't choose Cure. So this is how it all started. It all began.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just listening to that and listening to the initial realization that I think sometimes it's very easy for people to brush over the fact that you know people are choosing to go this direction. But as you're saying that for a lot of people, um, and it's interesting in how you're saying Hamsafar is saying no, it's not preference, it is an orientation. And for a lot of people, which maybe you have seen yourself, you will see that they will say, "Oh, Dr. Parvez is as old as much as I can remember. I've always had these feelings, or I've always had these attractions." Um, how do you think you reconcile that when someone comes to you with saying it's always been with me, and then it being an orientation, so uh how do you see those things? Are they different, or do you think that um how would you kind of reconcile the two?
When we look at other ayat of the Quran, let's say Surah Mulk, تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So people have been created, death and life has been created to test them. Similarly, in Surah Shams, we have فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, that every soul has been ingrained, imbibed with the good and the bad of it. So what I could understand is that temptations have been created. It's like a question paper. So everyone has a question paper because it is an examination. So we are being tested with some desires, some sins, and it is up to us to choose the right path, to choose taqwa or fujur. And when someone says that I have always been so I completely agree with them, because temptations are something that have been ingrained. It's like a question paper. You get the question paper. You can't choose your question paper. It's just that how you answer that paper, that is more important. Whatever I could gather is that it is just as much a temptation as any other temptation. Like we have many other temptations. Some are tempted by their tongues. They tend to lie. They tend to backbite, gibbat. They tend to gossip. They use swear words. There are some who are tested with their health. They have handicaps. They have diseases. Some are tested with their wealth. Some are rich. That is a fitna for them. Some are poor. That is a fitna for them. And some are tested with their temperaments. Someone cannot control his anger, his arrogance, pretentiousness, ostentation. And there are some others who are tested with their sexual urges. And it is not only same-sex attraction. Like if you see all over the world, sexual anarchy is more in the form of rape, in the form of fornication, adultery. So they are all being tested, and they all come under zina, all those sexual attractions which overflow into sexual anarchy. So when people come and say that there is a person who has multiple sexual affairs and he is promiscuous or whatever towards a woman, then people don't raise their eyebrows so much as if someone says that he is attracted to a boy. So I thought that we need to carry all temptations on the same pedestal, that anyone who is tempted has, there is no person, I believe, who doesn't have any temptation, because if he doesn't have any temptation, then there is no test, there is no examination. So for that concept of examination to exist, there need to be temptations, and just so that some people are tested by same-sex attraction, like every other person would be tested by any other means. And that is why I could, despite not having same-sex attraction, I could I could understand these things, because I have my own temptations, which I might not share with you. But then, since I have my own temptations and I have been struggling to control it, and I cannot wish it away. So people who have same-sex attraction, maybe they cannot wish it away. If it had really been a choice, then I know several people who would have chosen otherwise. There are people who cry, they have held the gilaf of the Kaaba, they have cried, and they come to us, they cry that we don't want to be attracted, we don't want those wet dreams to appear, but we can't do anything about it. So it can never be a choice. Had it been a choice, people would definitely have chosen otherwise, and they would not have ended up with depression and suicidal attempts that they do. This is how I took it personally.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love what you're saying about providing that space for people who aren't finding any other space to even go, and how as temptations, we look at this temptation as more repulsive perhaps than other temptations, just because of the stigma. And perhaps that's why maybe people gravitate to Humsafar, because they're saying, oh, we can discuss about this issue openly, and there's a safe space. Whereas in the Muslim community, it seems, or what you're describing is, in that community, they can't have an open discussion and saying, oh, well, I have these temptations, I have these desires, but I don't have any practical advice on what I'm supposed to do with them, or how I'm supposed to, or how am I supposed to answer that paper when it comes to me? How am I supposed to, in the long term, have kind of an answer to this? So,
But that leads to a lot of problems.
Mhm.
This thing of not having a vent to open out to people, that is the main reason of all the problems that Indian Muslims especially face these days. That is the most important. All the problems that emanate, all the problems that they have, that is all because of this, that they don't have any safe space to open up to. For fear of getting boycotted, of being ridiculed, whatever.
Yes. So from your experience, so you started, remind me when you started the effort, TAQueer. Was it, I think it was 2 years ago, or was it last year?
It was last year, August.
It was last
August
year.
month.
Okay. And then since then, how has it been? Has there been cases? Have been people who've approached? Or in terms, obviously there's confidentiality, I appreciate that. But in terms of how have people responded to the service?
Actually, the first paper that I had presented, that was, like I spoke, before the lockdown setting. That was in Feb 2020. And because of the lockdown, that paper did not get published. So I put it on Facebook to see if anyone else, has the same thoughts as I do. And a person approached me anonymously with an anonymous profile. He called himself Neha. I can share that name because he used that profile. It's not his real name. And then he got in touch with me on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and I tried to reason out with him. He told me that he has been having same-sex attractions, and then he's during his Hajj also, he held on to the Gilaf of the Kaaba and he cried and he came back, but he again slipped back. So I tried to convince him, took him into confidence. I met him, and turned out that he was my friend in real life, a friend of mine. I got to know a lot of things from him, whatever is happening in Mumbai, especially the suburb that I live in. I understood that there are many Muslims who are struggling with these things. There are many who advocate these things. There are many Muslims who are on apps. They have a cafeteria over here where they meet up, and they are very bold and very unapologetic about having same-sex attraction and indulging in it. So this is one guy I found whom I could take into confidence, and I could know a lot of things. And on the basis of that experience, we floated this online portal, TAQueer. And since then, we have had interactions with people via Messenger. And there was a person from Toronto, from the Indian subcontinent. I won't mention the country, but he's working there right now. Then there was one person from Bahrain. That person actually flew down to Mumbai to meet us. So they have their own problems. Everyone has their own problems regarding this. There were many people in India, from Kashmir, from Maharashtra, Aurangabad, And from Karnataka, there's a PG student who was going through all these things. And we also came across a person who was thrown out by his family when they came to know about all these things. So many people did approach us, and we are in touch with most of them. Most of them have chosen to remain anonymous, and we respect that. And some people have even revealed their name over a course of period of time, of course. But they have revealed their names. Like I said, one person came down to Mumbai, flew down to Mumbai just to have a word with us. So it's been we are still at the nascent stage. But the second thing that we did was, apart from counseling only those people who have these same-sex attractions, we thought we should widen up the canvas and speak to the Muslim society at large and try to sensitize them with the problems faced by those people who are having same-sex attraction. Because unless and until the Muslim community, the Muslim society is not sensitized towards this, and if they continue to remain homophobic, then things won't get solved only by one-to-one counseling. Maybe they can abide with Taqwa, but then there are many other problems in society like marriage. Marriage is a very big problem in India. It cannot be shooed away. So for that, we tried to open up to the society. We held seminars for the Muslim society community and trying to sensitize them. But we have faced opposition on that front. People who are very orthodox, they consider us very liberal. People who are very liberal, they consider us very orthodox. So
what type of opposition have you experienced so far in TAQueer?
When we approach Muslim organizations, they told us that you are bringing up a very lewd topic. It's a very lewd topic to discuss. It's a very shameful topic to discuss. This is not something that we discuss over. And that is very surprising, because we have had a lot of cases where girls are getting married to boys, and those boys are not interested in them, and the marriage crumbles. We tried to have durus of the Quran in masajid, and those people told us that these are not topics that we discuss in the masjid, despite the fact that we read those ayat in the namaz and in Tarawih. So this is something. And on the other end, when we said that this is haram, because we met many Muslims who were trying to say that it's not going to matter. This is very trivial. We have had Muslims who said that we come from a very religious society, and we are international speakers on Islam, so this would be forgiven of us. So they are so audacious to not accept that they are sinning. So we got calls from the liberal camp as well, that these people they are more into they are trying to curb individual freedom. They are not allowing freedom. When we told them that this is against the edicts of Islam, they said that you are being too orthodox, you're being mullah. And so this is something that we have faced opposition from both ends. And I think this is something that we already expected, because this is a very new thing. But some people who were more sane-minded, they have joined us, but it is still on social media. We need more strength to actually go on, have a branding for ourselves, so that people can approach us. Like I was able to approach Humsafar Trust because I knew there is something called Humsafar Trust. And until and unless people come to know about us, it will still remain the same. Until and unless we sensitize the entire Muslim society, and then maybe one day we would not require any such organization like TAQueer. The main goal is that we won't require any such organization like TAQueer.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding is that once there's awareness that yes, some Muslims can have same-sex attraction and that's okay, and that our masajid cater for those individuals, just as they would do with other people having other desires or other temptations, and then the mosques would speak about temptation, whether it's the same-sex temptation or other temptations, and they'd speak about it. And welcome people in who might be on the edges of Islam, as we're saying, in terms of their questioning, or they're not quite sure where they are, then there would be no reason for that voice. But while it seems like we're very far, perhaps, on that front, what are some of the strategies? What are some of the things you're thinking, or do you have a team which kind of thinks of, okay, maybe this is the direction we should be heading in?
Actually, the main focus right now is on empathy. We would like people to empathize with them, and we ourselves would like to empathize with such people. The main problem, Ali bhai, if I can just list down the problems that we are facing in India, which might not be as pronounced as in the West. So maybe that can give us more insight into how we are dealing with these problems. Maybe the problems are a bit different over here. There is one thing which is enormous guilt, and that guilt is because people feel, when they read the Quran, pious people, God-fearing people, when they read the Quran and they come across all those ayat of Lut alayhi salam, and they read all those ahadiths about homosexuality and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam cursing those people who indulge in sodomy, they actually weep, they cry, they feel ashamed of themselves. They feel that they are sinful people, God doesn't love them, what will happen to them in the Akhirah. And this unsurmountable guilt. So we try to tell them that, look, we try to make them understand that just having those temptations is not a sin. And we also try to tell them that having those temptations and not acting upon them is actually a virtue. So that will give you sawab. We quote hadiths, we quote from the Quran, and we explain to them that having temptations and not acting upon those temptations is actually a form of a source of reward for you. Like Prophet Muhammad had said that anyone who guarantees to me that he would take care of his tongue and his private parts, I guarantee for him a place in Jannah. So what else can a person ask for? And second problem is anxiety and insecurity that they have, because if they have this, that if their family members come to know about their attractions, then maybe they might disown them. Like I said, that there was a person who was thrown out of his house when his family members came to know about these things. Someone did some mischief. A friend of his, he took some photographs and some chats, printed those chats on a paper, and he sent it by mail to his family members, and he was thrown out. So that insecurity, they have nightmares that someone would find out, maybe their wife would find out, their parents would find out, and there's a suffocation because they can't tell it to anyone. Like if I have a sin, if I'm being tempted by something, I can at least tell my friend. And we have a situation over here, like let's say, let's hang on to sexual attraction. If I'm attracted to a girl in my workplace, and I tell a friend of mine, at least he will tell me that, like, Parvez, this is not good. You have a wife at home, and whatever. But I can't even tell him that I'm attracted to a boy. That this is out of bounds. He will break the friendship. He will. There's a very potential fear of me getting exposed and thrown out of society, ostracized, whatever. So that suffocation of not being able to tell anyone. At least what happened with Neha was that at least he could confide in me. Neha is a feminine name, but he is a guy. So he could at least confide in me. So that, that gave him an outburst, a vent of sorts. That is missing over here. Then they have suicidal thoughts. There's a person, Alimuddin, he's a religious scholar by education. He has attempted suicide 8 times. And I had one more phone call from a place near Mumbai where he has attempted suicide. He was on the verge of attempting suicide when he called me. Alhamdulillah, he backtracked. And then, like I said, there's this problem with marriage. People, there are parents who feel that if my son gets married, and he has a woman in his life, then his problems will get solved and he'll come back to his normal self. But that doesn't happen. It spoils his life. It spoils the life of the lady he is going to marry, and many marriages, they break up. And in Indian society, if a woman is married in a household, then especially in the rural areas, there is no concept of divorce. So the woman has to languish in that house without the rights that a wife has. So it's a very miserable condition. And there are situations where like there was one person I met, the person who had come down from Bahrain. He wanted to marry. He said that he wanted to marry, he wanted to have a family, but everyone was forcing him in the workplace to marry, and he couldn't tell them that I can't marry because I'm not attracted to girls at all. He went to psychiatrists. The psychiatrists actually asked him, Muslim psychiatrists, they actually asked him to go to brothels and test whether he could actually have an arousal. That it was so bad. It was so bad that they actually tried to force him into zina just to see whether he could have a married life or not. Then probably that is why he flew down to Mumbai. And we told them that there are many women who want to marry, they have crossed their marriageable age, and that they are not having any proposals coming towards them. You can marry those ladies, telling them that, look, I won't be able to give you those sexual pleasures. And maybe they might marry you for social reasons. And there are many ladies who just want a husband in their life. So this is how we try to, work around their problems. And all those problems of guilt, all those problems of anxiety, those nightmares, those would be solved. These problems of marriage would be solved if they're at least able to confide in their own family members, in their own best friends. I'm not saying come out in the open, come out of the closet. Don't come out of the closet. If they're not comfortable, don't come out. There is no need to tell the entire world that you have such sexual orientations. There's no need. But at least there should be a society where at least a person can tell his family members, so he's not thrown out. He doesn't have those anxiety and nightmares. He doesn't have to take pills. He doesn't have to go to a psychiatrist. He doesn't have to explain to anyone why he's not getting married. I think those things are very important in the Indian milieu. I don't know about the West, but this is something which matters a lot in India, especially because despite the fact that it has been decriminalized, but societal pressure is always there. And especially in the Muslim community, no matter what legislation or anything comes up, it will still be haram. So what part of that is haram and what part is not haram? We need to delineate on those lines and tell them that, look, just having a desire is not haram in any manner. Just like having desires for women is not haram until and unless he acts upon. So that is the main thing. That is why we said that we try to put all our hopes on the concept of Taqwa, on Tawbah, so that he gets more pious, more God conscious, and maybe that would help him in life, and maybe that would help the society as well to consider him as a pious person and not allow his sexual attraction or orientation to come in the way of treating him as a very good Muslim. And if he is actually able to overcome all these things just for the sake of Allah, then I think he deserves the highest places in paradise more than maybe most of us do.
Yeah, so there's almost a understanding of the test, as you're saying, and the understanding of that we are all tempted with different desires and different tests, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what I'm hearing is that your belief that will never put you in a situation where you can't do anything, right? So there is never you're in a situation where Allah is testing you and there's no way out of that test, or there's no halal out of that, as if you're alternative. So yes, and it is, and kind of the community that you're seeing, it's at that phase that even just uttering the words, I'm attracted to my own sex, is unfathomable even to their family, which is supposed to be their primary support system, right? And in India, that's what the culture is. And so I guess TAQueer opens the conversation up to just say, look, there are some Muslims and they can have that, and just getting the word out in itself, and having perhaps a network of other Muslims who are in India as well, who are going through the same issue, perhaps gives a sense of belonging to the people who are struggling, and they're seeing that they're not alone in that. What are some of the things that you would like to do, or what are some of the things you would through TAQueer like to develop on, or where do you think you would like to see this in maybe 5 years or so?
Like I said, we need branding, and once we have branding, we also need counseling centers. We need qualified counselors who are like-minded, Muslim counselors, maybe non-Muslim counselors as well, who understand this fine line between having temptations and not acting upon it. And approachable, we need to be approachable. We should be in a prominent place where people can walk in and discuss their problems, not only online but in person as well. We also need to work with Madaris, Islamic seminaries. A very uncomfortable reality, but students in Muslim seminaries, in Madaris, they go through all these things at a very, on a large scale. And there are Madaris in some parts of India that I know of, where they have started, acting upon this, trying to segregate students, not allowing students to come up after Maghrib, not allowing students to enter the residential quarters of their own teachers after sunset. So they have tried to pull the plugs. So we need to work with Madaris as well, because students who graduate from Madaris become our imams and our ulma. And if the problem lies in that section, in that sector of those religious scholars who are supposed to take us out of it, then that is catastrophic. If our own mentors, try to, like I said, that there are people, when we told them that you are an alim and you are not supposed to do this, and what they replied was that since we are an alim, we are sheikh, we are ulma, so this will be forgiven of us. So if people are so audacious enough, I don't want to put a blanket accusation on anyone, but then we need to work on those premises as well at the Madaris level. And the third part is that we need to sensitize the Muslim community on a very large scale. I was listening to an American Muslim scholar, I forget his name, and what he was telling me was that 10 years ago, when he was trying to tell all the masajid that we need to sermonize on this problem, they shooed him away, they ridiculed him, they said that this is not something that is on our priority list. We need to focus on more important things. And now today, situation is such that American masajid are giving Jummah sermons on same-sex attraction and all these things. So I don't want the same thing to be repeated in India, because India is infamous for aping the West. Whatever happens in the West, 5 years, 10 years hence, it happens in India. Astaghfirullah. So maybe we should start at this stage, we should nip it in the bud. If Muslim society is sensitized today through Jummah sermons, through collective efforts, then maybe it would, in the long term, be of great merit. But then we can't do it alone. We need to, gang up with everyone, all the stakeholders, especially all the Jamaats, Jamaat-e-Islami Hind or Jamaat Ulama, whoever is active in India. We need to convince them, but then we need soft power. So everything, it will take time, inshallah. But we hope that, because there is no other alternative right now. So we feel morally responsible for doing something about it, and to save those people who, if they are snatched away, if I may use the word, if they get snatched away by those liberal lobbies, then we would lose Muslims. We would lose Muslims to this menace, as we have lost Muslims elsewhere.
No, absolutely. And, and may Allah aid you and help you in your efforts to provide that safe space for many who don't have any other place to go to, or they don't have a Muslim-friendly understanding of this, when they can't actually turn to their friends or families to this. And we can only imagine what some of those people are going through, like the examples as you've mentioned, which have already approached you. Before we go to Q&A, is there anything else you would like to add before we go to Q&A?
There's one thing that I would just conclude with, is that we should be very clear about why we are against this. Like, when all the arguments came up in the Supreme Court of India, and there was already a section of British colonial time, to overrule all those arguments, the arguments were that it's not a health risk anymore, it is not a social stigma anymore, it is all about personal choice, it is all about individual freedom. So we as Muslims need to be very sure as to why exactly we are against this in the sense that against a culture where this is promoted or the act is normalized. If people say that there is no harm, it is consensual, then why are we against something which is not harmful per se at the site of it? And if it is still consensual, it is not rape, then why are Muslims so bothered about all this? We need to go back to our roots, that tomorrow, if let's say it is no longer a health concern, we have all the precautions and we have all the medicines, and tomorrow, let's say society is even Indian society, Indian families are very pro-gay, very embracing, and everything seems to be in their favor, Muslims would still be against it, because we are Muslims. By definition, Muslims are those who have submitted their wills to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had brought towards us. There's a wonderful hadith in which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that no one can be a perfect believer unless he submits to what I have brought. And there are verses in the Quran which tell us that no one can have any opinion over and above the opinion. No one can just even say that, this is what Islam says, but in my opinion, there is no my opinion. So, and there is a wonderful ayat in Surah Araf which says that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prohibits only those things which are bad for humanity by Allah's command, obviously, and he permits those things which are good. So even if we don't understand, even if we feel that it is not harmful, it is consensual. By the way, consensual is not something that we can debate over, because zina, whether consensual or not, it is still zina. But then just because Islam says it is bad, and since Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said it is bad, so we as Muslims especially, we need to repose our trust in the wisdom of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and whatever he had been taught by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and try to reform our society, because we are the last line of defense. There's a sheikh. I was watching the Deen show the other day, and there's Sheikh Dr. Karim Abu Zaid, who says that Muslims are the last line of defense against this immoral trend. So even if the entire world seems to be pro-LGBT, at least we as Muslims need to stand up against it, and at the very same time, be empathetic towards those who are struggling with these desires. That is all I think I would like to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for that time and yes, and the understanding of taslim in Islam, of submission, so, kind of submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how many times we don't understand the rulings, or maybe when we're younger, we ask, oh Allah, why are you being so harsh? And when we're older, we make sense of what the rules were. And especially rules around the family unit in terms of protecting the family unit, and how some people don't see that because they see it from a micro level, not a macro level, in terms of what the rulings are, and yes, a very individualistic level rather than a community level in terms of what's happening. So we go for Q&A. So for those of you who are on the webinar, you will see that there is an option for chat. So you can ask anonymously as well, and then you can rate the questions. There's a Q&A option at the bottom. There is also, if you would prefer to raise your hand, you can raise your hand and then you can ask via audio. But if you do that, just be aware that your name will show up, and this is a live public webinar. So as people are kind of putting some of the questions in, one of my questions was, you mentioned that there is a need to kind of speak to the religious authority, or speak to the madrasas and try and get them to look into this issue. What would be a good outcome, do you think? Or how would you approach the madrasa, or how would you approach the religious authorities in this subject? What would a good outcome look like?
I was hoping if we could, get in touch with those religious bodies, those like Jamaat-e-Islami Hind, or maybe student organizations, those organizations like the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. We have, big Muslim organizations which have influence, and the madaris belong to them, or they come under their circle of influence, let's say. So if we try to convince those people, and they already know what is happening, this is not something that it's an open secret, let's say. And if we can make provisions in their hostels to see to it that such things are not encouraged or not turned a blind eye to, then maybe this would work out like it has worked out. I was speaking to the imam of my own masjid, and he told me that there is in the madrasa that he received education, these things are being done. So I might presume that these things are being done in other madaris as well, but then we don't have any survey or any detail. If we can, and it is very difficult to approach each and every madrasa in India. There is a network, there's a huge network of madaris in India, alhamdulillah. The millions of madaris in India. But if you can approach those bodies which are controlling those madrasas, or maybe the apex madaris like Nadwa or Deoband, then maybe something can work out. Inshallah.
Inshallah. And I think may Allah make it easier for you to approach them, and for them to be, kind of aware
But
of the needs.
they're quite reluctant, otherwise, because they gather their strength from the masses and they don't want to appear any less orthodox than they would like themselves to appear. So that is where we face problems. We trying to convince the Muslim hierarchy that this is something to look into. That is a task in itself. And I think we are just waiting for the volcano to erupt before we come to realize that this was something that we should have done, years ago. So may Allah give tawfiq to all the stakeholders. Maybe they can do this in a better manner. So we'll try with inshallah lobbying and advocacy. These things will work inshallah.
Yes, absolutely. So there's always the hierarchy, which is always there, and you can't control what they're doing. But in terms of grassroots movements, which I guess what you are doing now, in terms of an advocacy or giving a platform for voices who are perhaps brave, for example, the story that you've mentioned of the Muslim person who's holding the khilaf and saying, look, this is how I want my story to be publicized, because this is how desperate I am into getting help. And if these stories are given the voices that they deserve, and especially, as you're saying, when one of the voices is so strong and it is kind of saying, oh, we're the safe space for people to come in, and then people only realize when people have left, right? And they've not realized when they're not preemptive and thinking, okay, this is an issue, so we need to be doing something with people who are struggling. So maybe people who are struggling today are no longer struggling. They're already made their mind up in either way which direction they're going. And if they don't have support, faith support, which is kind of saying, oh, look, there is another way, it's just not laid out to you, it's not clear yet, it's not the popular narrative which is being sent, then that is ultimately a response for the nation as a whole, that there hasn't been any help for people who are struggling, and of course, perhaps the conversation is even higher in terms of just talking about sexual ethics, right? So maybe in the community, if they can't talk about sexual ethics, if you can't bring that to the member in terms of, let alone same-sex attraction, maybe what sex is and topics around that, then there's a huge elephant which is perhaps not being addressed in the masajid, or they're saying, oh, this member is too pure for conversations like this, or and when you tell them the Quran speaks about it, then they don't have a response to say how if it's really filthy, then perhaps the Quran shouldn't be talking about it, right? In terms of that.
It's not just that the Quran is speaking about it. The Quran is speaking about it 7 times. And any scholar of tafsir would tell you that if the Quran repeats the same topic twice, then the importance of that topic becomes all the more important. It becomes more severe. And if the Quran is stating something 7 times, so it means that it is not only for that community which lived in the age of Lut alayhi salam. Because the Quran is a guidebook for eternity. So Allah is trying to tell us that, look, this is such an important topic that I'm bringing it again and again. And it is quite unfortunate that the Muslim community is turning a blind eye to it. And like you said, giving some counseling to those people who are struggling with these things and because they don't have a way out. I was hoping if we can collaborate with strong support as well, because we do have counselors. Because it is anyway online as of now, so it doesn't make much of a difference between whether they, and we have had people from Toronto and Bahrain and other places. So we might as well divert people to your platform if they need some help in this regard, professional counseling maybe, until unless we come up with our own counselors, which might take a bit of time. And then what is happening is we are not catering to those people who are approaching us in the manner that we need to cater. If we only tell them that by fear Allah and this is something that happens and we are only preaching, then only preaching might not help. They need professional counseling. This is why they open up to us. A person who takes the risk and opens up to us, he's coming out of the closet just to meet us. And if we don't have anything to offer to him other than just preaching, then I think that would be a very big injustice and a disservice. So maybe if you allow us, we might, send our
Absolutely.
case.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We would love, we tried to set up a circle which was for Asia timing, India timing, and we can set that up again in terms of people who would like a circle where there's it's online and you can speak to other Muslims who are going through the same thing, and it's weekly, and if you feel that that is something that TAQueer will benefit from, then definitely that is and you'd kind of help us in the Asian, because most of our people are Europe or America, but it'd be great if we could get people in the I'm from South Asia, so I understand. I'm from Pakistan, so I understand the comment from that, definitely. So we have a question here. So it says, Assalamu alaikum, how would you approach children, male child who has a desire to dress up as female and use makeup from the age of 5 to 6 years and have now reached adulthood and never managed to marry? Jazakallah khair. So yes, it's that question.
What age is that child now? Is he 5 to 6 years now, or he has been applying makeup to the age of 5 6?
So when he was 5 and 6, he started to apply makeup and dress up as a female. But now, he's reached adulthood. He's always been like this as a child, so it's something from childhood. So the question is saying, now he's reached adulthood in a time where he's ready for marriage, or he's in a marriageable age. How would you approach this?
I would suggest you don't force him to marry. So marriage is not the end all of everything. It is not the purpose of a creation to get married on earth. And in such a case where the person is not inclined towards marriage, and forcing him to marry just to satisfy some social norms would be very devastating, would be catastrophic, because he would not enjoy the marriage, he would not be able to give his wife the pleasures of marriage, and it would break down. And we have seen cases where the marriages break down, or it is a very suffocating marriage at best. And I think people should be given the choice to marry or not to marry, and marriage should not be considered a threshold or a yardstick to some form of social achievement. If the person is not ready to marry, don't force him to. You would be worsening his life by marrying him to someone whom he does not connect with or cannot connect with. And if in the future he himself desires to marry, then he might marry. So I don't think anyone else should have a say in that matter. It is the person concerned who should have a say in that matter, and he should be the only person who should have a say in the matter.
Right. Okay. So we have same question saying, I had 2 patients like this. This person's coming from a mental health background. They're saying, how do we support children? So I think in terms of having children, is especially, I think I agree with brother Dr. Parvez, as he's saying that the social norm for marriage is very corrosive, because it assumes that marriage is a vehicle to fix things, where it's actually a vehicle to give responsibility or give maturity to someone who's reached that level. So I think with supporting children who are perhaps having some type of gender identity issue, it's supporting them in listening to them, and kind of as Dr. Parvez is saying, having that empathy of what they're actually feeling, how they actually feel, and not being result orientated. So I think sometimes when we say we're offering empathy, but we're actually waiting for you to reach the result. For example, I'm saying, oh, I do have empathy for you, but I do also expect you to get married, then that's not true empathy. True empathy is saying, we realize that this is something which is difficult for you, and we hope that you reach a place where your value system, or what you want to be doing, aligns, or when you're ready to take the next step, whatever that next step may be, then you're ready at that moment. Because I think in our, even in the West, we have that culture where the parents will come in and they say, he's not married yet, or he's not at this point yet. And actually, that expecting your child to conform to some type of goal or kind of place where you think that there is the best thing for them, well, it may not be the best thing for them. And it may be that if you listen to them and they understand that, okay, my, either my therapist or my parents are understanding that I have a conflict, they understand I have a conflict, and I'm working through that conflict in a safe space, with the hope that one day I'm going to come out of this conflict. And then once I come out of the conflict, then I'm able to make a decision of what am I going to do, because for a lot of people, if all what they see is the conflict, the gender identity conflict, they cannot imagine a world without that conflict, right? So to expect them to, kind of marry, or expect them to have, quote unquote, normal type of outcome will not help. So yeah, just some of my reflections, but
if I can add to it a little.
Yeah.
There are two concepts of parenting, actually. There's one concept of parenting where it's a pottery approach, where you actually mold the child with your own hands, and you give the child the shape that you want the child to adopt. And then you can make whatever vessel you want. It's also called the bonsai approach, where you try to make the plant a small plant, the bonsai plants that they have in Japan. And there's one which is called scaffolding. Have those scaffolding around the buildings under construction, where you just provide a structure around the child, a protective structure around the child. If you feel that the child is deviating a lot, then you try to hold him back in. But then you allow the child to grow on his own terms. You don't dictate what the child would be. The child has his own personality, and we as the child is an amanat. In Islam, the child is an amanat. The child is not your property that you would choose to make and mold as you want. So if the child develops into that, whatever orientation or whatever he has, and trying to impose your own ideas, which have been influenced by society somewhere down the line, and trying to impose it on that child, then that creates a conflict. Conflicts are created when there is something on the opposite side. If my parents are very understanding, then there is no conflict at all. Conflict comes when there is something opposing my own natural predilection. So if parents are mature enough to let the child develop and maybe be more open about his own self, and not force him. That case from Bahrain that I told you, his colleagues were actually forcing him to marry and couldn't understand why he's not getting married. And just because of that pressure, that peer pressure of having to marry, he went to those psychiatrists who encouraged him to zina and all those things. So it's a very big, it's a very vicious cycle, a very bad cascade, just because he was being forced to. So I think if he just take it off, take that pressure off, maybe the child will go. And there are many other facets of a person's personality other than marriage or sexual life. And just because having so much focus on a person's sexuality, that person is not able to contribute on other platforms in society. His job gets affected, his career, his mental health, all his creativity, everything gets affected just because he has been forced into something that he is not ready for and might not be ready for. So we should be okay with it instead of just trying to impose our societal norms on our own child and making him a bonsai or a piece of pottery, let's say.
Yeah, no, a beautiful metaphor there in terms of growth and how parents try to control that. So as we approach towards the end of the webinar, if there's anybody watching and they want to be on contact with you, or they want to contact TAQueer, what's the best medium to speak?
We have a Facebook page, TAQueer, TAQueer, TA and then cure. We have our Twitter handle, we have our Instagram page, and the pinned post on our Twitter handle, the pinned tweet that they say, is that book that you mentioned. And everything that we have gathered until now, I've tried to code it in that book, A Crescent in the Rainbow, this a copy that I have over here, Crescent in the Rainbow. So it is available for free, a PDF copy. You can just download it. And we have our email as well. So if any person needs to get in contact with us, they have Facebook, they have Messenger, they have Twitter, they have email, they have Instagram, and they have you. They have you as well. We can get in touch through Ali Bhai as well.
Yeah,
I keep calling you Ali Bhai because I have a cousin whose name
that's
is
good.
Ali.
That's I'm heading off to Pakistan in a few days, and a lot of people call me Ali Bhai, so no problem. This is fine. So no, fantastic. And I think just from my reflections and seeing this, I think it's, alhamdulillah, it's an incredible effort that you're doing in India, honestly. And there's only what we're hearing is only a peak of the experiences and the difficulties that Muslims are facing on a day-to-day basis, where as Dr. Parvez is saying, that you can't even talk about it. It's not acceptable to talk about it, and that means that a lot of Muslims live their lives basically not talking about this issue, thinking this is, or even scholars thinking, well, there's no solution for this, so why are you judging me when there isn't a solution for this, or there isn't a service out there? So I think being the first voice and saying that actually we do need to do something about this, we do need safe spaces, we need material, we need campaigns like TAQueer, which are saying, look, you can still be Muslim and be same-sex attracted, and that's okay. You can, those both things, as you might not think they can exist in the same human being and be Muslim, well, you can still be that, and having that support to say, Allah subhanahu still loves you, Allah is still there, Allah is, and almost being a vehicle to show that mercy, that kindness, that compassion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he has, and how people who are going through that, it's an incredibly difficult test, and it is something that they need support for, they need empathy for, they need spouses, as we read in the Quran, that وَخَلَقْنَا لَكُمْ, Allah's already created spouses for you which will understand you. They will understand what you're going through. You're not a lost cause. I think a lot of people think that, oh, because I'm not even attracted to them, that firstly, it's always going to be like that, as I'm always not going to be attracted to them, or that Allah's just will that I'm a lost cause, or there's no way out of this. And we know that there is no time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, well, that as in there's no way out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Surah Baqarah, where you don't even imagine, وَمَنْ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, Allah has an exit, a makhraja, he has an exit from where you would never thought you'd be able to come out from. So and I love the word of taqwa and how that's consistent in the Quran. And whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Prophet Lut alayhi salam, he invites them to taqwa, invites them to having that relationship with him. He invites, for a lot of people, the temptation can then be thought of as a way that Allah is bringing us back. Even though we don't think the temptation in that way, maybe it's a trial. Whenever I'm experiencing that temptation, Allah is bringing me back, or Allah is testing me and saying, which path am I going? How am I going to write that paper? How am I going to answer this paper? How am I going to do that test? I sincerely pray that we can help each other in this initiative. Like I say, if you are if this webinar has connected with you, you want to connect with Dr. Parvez, you can contact me. I'll be more happy to get people in touch. And inshallah, it'd be great to I'll be following your initiative and seeing what is, because I just think that you've started something, and I'm sure that a lot of people will find this a use, because it is a huge issue at the moment. And then I wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it beautiful for you, and that he gives more barakah and people who are going to come forward and inshallah take this forward. And may Allah give you much more tawfiq, inshallah, to carry on with this, as long as much as your other responsibilities of publishing, of da'wah, and so on. And may Allah continue to bless you in that form.
This all melts down to the same thing, actually. Dawah, TAQueer, khairul nas man yanfa'un nas. The best of people are those who benefit others. So we don't try to make any distinction. All human beings need to reach that point. And if we are in some humble way able to touch upon people's lives and try to make it better, and then it goes around and comes back to us, and some people touch our lives and they make our lives better, then that is all what the humanity is all about.
Right? Absolutely, yeah, said beautifully. Well, it's been a pleasure having everybody today, and inshallah we join us in another webinar. Until then, Assalamu alaikum.